Hey everybody, it's your old pal Brian Hunt. Welcome to another episode of 60 Seconds or Less. Today I'm going to have a good friend Amor talk to us. Amor is kind of an interesting hybrid of a person. She is a reformed architect, for lack of a better term, so she knows the AEC community very well in the ins and outs. But she has a sort of different perspective on the community and how to help her clients. So Amor, make an introduction yourself. Tell the crowd about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Amor Brewerton, and Brian, thanks so much for having me on.
Sure.
And like Brian said, I used to be in the architecture industry. I was in it for 9 years. I did a lot of construction documents and did a lot of retail work. So I kind of know how the construction process actually goes. And I know the inner workings of architecture firms and to some extent engineering firms as well.
So you know how the sausage gets made.
I do, yeah. And I feel like that enables me to talk a little bit easier to principals and owners of architecture firms.
So what do you do now?
So now I am more on the wealth advisory side. So I'm working with individuals and business owners to help them both accumulate and preserve their assets, right? And so I think a lot of times when you're talking to a wealth advisor, the emphasis is placed on the accumulation portion.
Sure.
But there's never a ton of emphasis placed on the preservation, which is kind of where I like to try to focus on as well.
And that's good risk management. I like to hear the sound of that.
I know. It's all about risk management.
So what are the certain risks that you're seeing in the community with your clients? What are their big concerns or exposures these days?
Yeah, so I recently attended an AEC executive roundtable. It was hosted by the Swiga group. And if you're in the AEC community and you've never heard of them, you really should know who they are. They do a lot of surveys with a lot of different firms nationally, and so it ranges from small to large companies, right?
Okay.
Hundreds of employees to down to like 2-3 employees. But they're basically gathering data. They do a lot of consulting with architecture and engineering firms, as well as construction. But what I learned was one of the biggest issues at the moment, and this is true for most of the U.S., right,
Yeah.
is the employee shortage, right,
Yep.
labor shortages. But while the U.S. is currently experiencing on average a 3.6% unemployment rate, in the architecture and construction industry, it's actually, as of May, it was down to 1.7%.
I can believe that.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
And so what architecture firms and engineering firms are experiencing is they are struggling to keep up their revenues because their payroll is outpacing revenues
Right.
at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
We've got all of this work, so you would think, man, our revenues should be kicking butt,
Yeah.
but they're not.
So what is some of the mechanisms or tools you're bringing to the table to help these clients?
So one idea that was brought to the table, and I think it makes a lot of sense, is instead of focusing on increasing salaries, right? Instead of committing to a person and saying we're going to pay you this much, every year, what you can do instead is offer better bonuses,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So if your company does well, you've got that extra money that you can give them. They're happy. You keep those employees.
Sure.
You might even be able to attract new employees with that,
Yeah.
but you're not putting yourself in that level of risk, at
Yeah.
that level of risk to all of a sudden, not have any money to pay people, and then you're laying people off. Another thing, now you're going to have to talk to a specialist on this one.
Got it.
Start looking at R&D tax credits. Apparently, those can alleviate the bottom lines by about 3 to 5%.
Okay.
And that helps in, freeing up some cash to either increase those bonuses, or if you really are trying to attract some new employees, well, now you've got some of that money going towards that new salary that you just committed to. But a big reason for not committing to the salaries is, there's talks of recession, right?
Yeah.
Some people think we're already there, others not so much. But regardless of where we're at, you really don't want to put yourself in a position where, again, you're committing to that and then having to lay a ton of people off because you're overcommitted.
Great. So as you kind of think about it, the audience and trying to think strategic ways and new ways to try to retain talent in this very tight market, what's that one nugget or two that you'd want to advise these people to think about as far as, you got to keep your staff, what can you do to keep them?
So a lot of coming from the architecture industry, right?
Yep.
And my experience, I would say listen to your employees. Make sure that you actually understand what their what their grievances are. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's not. Sometimes they just want to be listened to. Sometimes they want to know that they're making a difference in the company, right? That their ideas are being taken.
Valid.
That can make a huge impact. And so I know people that have left because they just weren't being appreciated at the firm that they were with, and they didn't leave for much more than what they were getting paid before.
Wow, that's solid advice.
That's
solid.
huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Amor, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Brian.
You bet. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you'd like to see certain topics or individuals interviewed, please let me know. Put my comments on LinkedIn. You can also subscribe to my channel on YouTube. You can find links to this also on Twitter. Until next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.